FaZe Jev brought something up in one of his recent videos about Black Ops Cold War, Treyarch's most recent Call of Duty title release, and it is so true what he said, and it's one thing that I want everyone to hear today, as I'll expand on what he said about Cold War, what he meant by what he said, and why I ultimately agree with him on it. Alright, what's going on, guys? Tis the Wan, and basically the idea for this video, it just kind of honestly came out of nowhere. Now, there are very few people I will watch when it comes to the gaming community. Jev has always been one of them and continues to be, so I've always been a big supporter of his because of, ultimately, his genuineness and his personality and just how he carries himself. He's just kind of an honest, straight shooter, and that's just something I've always admired about him. Anyway, I watched one of his videos recently, and you may have seen it as well if you watch his content. It was the one where Jungle had just come out, I believe. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Black Ops Cold War was in the title, so you can either search that up later, or go to his channel, or click on the link to his video in the description of this video. Hopefully I remember. If I don't, yell at me in the comments down there. So now before this clip I'm about to play for you, Jev talks about how he was surprised by how populated Cold War actually is after looking at some graphs tracking all that kind of crap. And I just thought I'd give you some context of the short clip, but yeah, I'll just play his first point that he makes in the clip for you right here.
How kind of a step back Cold War was in terms of like the mechanics, like they didn't have tac sprint and things like that, and people actively said when they got the game that it felt older. It felt like the game looked worse and all this other stuff. Now, I think that's just a stylistic and art differences between them.
So he addresses a gripe that much of the Call of Duty community had with Cold War initially, and still do today. And that is the art style differences between Cold War and Modern Warfare and how you can't tac sprint. To the people who are opposed to Cold War, it just felt outdated or older, as Jev put it, and they just simply don't like the look of the game. Now, you may be one of those people, and that's totally fine. I actually do agree that Modern Warfare does look and feel better in terms of its smoothness and their engine, I guess you could call it, and I have played enough of both games to acknowledge that. And if you're used to tac sprinting, I understand that too, because that was also used in Warzone. So you gotta get used to the feel of two different engines, you know, in Modern Warfare / Warzone, and then going on to Cold War. It's just it'll kind of throw you off a bit. But also, Cold War does have some issues mechanically. And that's not to say Modern Warfare doesn't, but Cold War has, at the same time, cleaned it up a lot in that aspect. Now, on the other hand, aside from the art style differences, which don't bother me at all really, like, I can respect and admire the distinctions between the two, because that's one of the things that sets the developers apart. Those being Treyarch with Cold War and Infinity Ward with Modern Warfare. But again, aside from the art style differences, I can still acknowledge the fact that Cold War is actually still an okay game. And in my humble opinion, better than Modern Warfare. Like, here, I'll roll the final part of Jev's clip.
That made me assume in my head that the player count was like a lot lower than it actually was across Cold War. Like, a lot of people played this game. Like, Cold War is actually a very solid game.
Again, he mentions how he was surprised by Cold War's population, and his expectations for the success of the game was based on hearing the annoyances that many people continue to have with Cold War. But he also agrees with me in saying that you may not hear it from many, or maybe there are a lot more who do agree than I expect, I don't know. But he does agree that Cold War is truly a solid game, more in the under-the-radar sense, because it seems to be here pretty often that many people have strong negative feelings toward the game, which is kind of weird, but is the game great? No! I mean, we aren't ever going to get another great game by any means. That ship has sailed. And when I mean great game, I mean Black Ops 2, you know, in those days, and the games that came before that one. Those games were great. So no, Cold War isn't great by any means, but it is a very solid game, especially by today's standards. And it is one of the better Call of Duty titles in recent years. Just in terms of the way the game plays, fast-paced, as well as implementing the face-off 6v6 game mode into the game. And I think that really helped it and worked great in my eyes. Now, I could go on and on when it comes to thinking of what worked and what didn't work with Cold War, but that could go on for a good while. It's just not needed for this. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap things up for this time around. Hope you enjoyed the video, but drop a comment down below and let me know what you think of what Jev had to say about Cold War. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Add any additional thoughts you had on this discussion, and as I'd love to hear them. But yeah, that's all I got for today, and see you in the next one. This has been Juan.